Sometimes when raising grandkids, especially grandsons, because they're a little less gullible, if you will, but at the same time they're curious enough to try just about anything. And sometimes they'll ask you questions like, why is the sky blue, or why do frogs jump like that, or why can't I pick up a frog with a spear? And sometimes the answer you give them, well, the only answer they have back is that true? Is that really true? Welcome to Leading Leaders Podcast, 5-minute videos, 5 days a week. I'm Loren Norris with Leading Leaders Podcast. I think a lot of us ask that question when someone gives us an answer. We think, is that true? I mean, is it really true? Sometimes the answer we get is just, for lack of a better term, the narrative. Meaning, it's the story they want you to believe. It's the story that they want you to think about them. I was watching Family Feud last night, and one of the questions was, on a first date or a blind date, what's something that a woman might think the guy she's meeting has that is fake? And they talked about his hair and his teeth and all kinds of stuff, and all of those are true. And one of them said his story. Maybe it's his career, maybe it's who he is, maybe it's his age, maybe it's his past, maybe it's his credit report. But he might tell stories that are not true stories about who he is. But see, there's something about story power. That narrative that we tell to ourselves, that story, that narrative that we tell to others about ourselves. And I want to give you a caveat that really must be brought together in your own heart and mind, because really the way you behave, the relationships you have, the way you conduct yourself as a leader in a relationship, in business, and in life in general, the way you conduct yourself comes from your deepest core belief. What you believe to be true is how you will act. And we don't attract in life what we want, we attract in life who we are. So if the who we are is driven by our belief, and our belief is all jacked up, then what you're going to get is not what you want, it's who you already are. But see, there's a phrase that I use often when I say story power is a read-write tool. Story power will both read all the things that you've been through in your past. So it may be that you sit down in front of someone and they ask about your job, or they ask about your resume, or they ask about your dating history, they ask about your family history. And in the process of answering that, you're like an open book. It's a read program. But the flip side of that is that story power is a write program. And it's all about the narrative. See, the challenge for many people is they don't have a picture yet of what tomorrow could be, should be, or would be. And as a result, they can't tell a story of where they're going. Most people are just plodding through life. And so if you hear a story from someone that sounds so fantastic, maybe they say, yeah, I'll one day have a red Corvette, and you look outside and they're driving a purple Chevette. You're like, well, a Chevette and a Corvette are kind of alike, but no, you're not there yet. Well, it may not be untrue. It may not be true yet. You follow me? See, the narrative is a read and a write program. That the narrative, the story power for our own life, tells us we can have better relationships, we can have a better career, we can have a better society, a better culture, we can have a better income, a better house, a better car, a better life, a better education. See, there's nothing stopping us from those things except that we continue to do what we already believe. And if we continue to do what we already believe, we're going to only get what we've already got. We've got to believe something different about our future, about the hope for our future. And we've got to help young people begin to believe. I had a conversation with one of my mentors yesterday. We talked for about 2 hours. And one of the things he pointed out was the sense of hopelessness that appears in a lot of the protesters in the street. Now, a lot of it has to do with racism, plain and simple. A lot of it has to do with just a general malaise of hopelessness, especially in the younger generation. They're hopeless in the face of a lot of what's going on with the pandemic. And they're hopeless in the face of seeing their parents losing jobs and themselves getting a college education and still not being able to get a job. And there's a lot of hopelessness that is holding them back. And let me tell you something. There will be a lot of hopelessness in our future if that narrative doesn't change. If we don't get busy changing the narrative of the hopelessness into a narrative of hope, into a story of a future for success, where they will be on top and not on the bottom, where they will have hope in their lives. If we don't start changing that narrative now, it's going to be a disaster in the next generation. So just remember, when you're having a conversation with someone and the story coming to their mouth doesn't match the circumstances in their life, if they're talking about the red Corvette and driving the purple Chevette, it may not be that the story is untrue. It's just not true yet. Maybe they already have it on layaway. Maybe they've already got money socked away to buy it. Maybe they're well on their way to that destination. And if that's the case, my friend, don't destroy their narrative. Don't destroy their narrative. Ask yourself, what could I do to enhance my own narrative? What future do I want in my own life that I'm not yet talking about, that I'm not yet believing to be true or even possible? Story power is a read-write tool, and it's all about the narrative, not just to reveal your past, but to plan and cause your future. I'm Loren Norris with Leading Leaders Podcast for Tell It Like It Is TV. Have a blessed day. Subscribe now for our extensive video library of leadership lessons promoting faith, family, and freedom.